Welcome to the Pull Up a Chair show. I'm Dr. Christy Wick.
And I'm Dr. Jake Grenacher.
And we are here to let you in on our in-depth conversations on chiropractic practice, personal development, leadership, and business excellence.
If you are needing inspiration, motivation, clarity, or permission in any of these areas of your life, we're glad you're here. Pull up a chair. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Pull Up a Chair podcast. Dr. Christy Wick, Dr. Jake Grenacher with you as always. And we are super excited to talk about this. This is something that, again, we love because it's something that's very top of mind whenever we're dealing with something or going through something and we're having to pull up a chair with each other. We want to bring you right into the conversation. So what we've been recently talking about is doing systems audits in our office. And we've done many over the years. We just went through one again very recently. So we want to take you through the process of A, what is that? And B, what are all the steps that are necessary to help audit your own systems?
So this is going to be especially important if you are, so at the time of recording this, it's the start-ish of a year. Oftentimes at this time, people are really just looking at how can I grow my practice? I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to look at. This is a process that you can continue to come back to when you're feeling like either A, there's a million different avenues you could run down and you're having a hard time selecting, or B, you're just kind of spinning around in circles and you're like, I'm not entirely sure what to tackle to make the right next step. This is a really good process that will illuminate different areas that need your attention. And then as you are working through those, it's easier for you to see the right next step.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we get a lot too is it's like, oh, maybe it's just you or you and one staff member in practice. And you're like, I don't have systems. And they get kind of worried. And the answer is yes, you do. You have them. You just may not have identified them yet as systems or really spent very conscious time working on them. So really what we define the systems of your practice is anything from that first patient phone call. And even when we get real gritty, there's a step before that. How are they seeing your brand? How are they coming in? All of that. But for the sake of this, we're going to talk about from when they first patient phone call through lifetime family wellness patient. All the steps that it takes to get through there, the new patient phone call, the pre-first visit, what texts are they getting, what, paperwork, the office tour, the day one, the day two, the table talk, the re-exams, the transition to wellness, those are your systems that we're talking about. And you should have those well-defined as you go through it. And if you don't, that's okay. Maybe we're illuminating something that you're going to look at for the first time today, and that's fine. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about systems.
So you can do this on your own. You can do this in a team meeting structure. Sometimes that is helpful, especially if you have a larger, team and some of the things you aren't, in touch with as much anymore, which is good and healthy. Then making sure you do this in conjunction with your team can be really helpful. But either way, if you do it with your team, we're a big fan of like whiteboarding out and you have to write down all the details, but just making a flow chart, as Jake mentioned, of, just from here to here, what are all the different things that need to happen? So that's step one.
Yep. And again, I think if you do have a team, I'm so glad you brought that up, Christy. It's imperative that you do it with the team because they're going to help you in the next step that you may not identify as well as they do. So the next step is just to really take all those steps, whether there's 6 steps or 8 steps or 12 or whatever you have in there, and literally just give them a number 1 through 10. Right? 10 being outstanding, phenomenal. Everybody moves from step 2 to 3. There's no breaks in anything. It's as clean and tight and well done as possible to 1, like, oh my gosh, everybody falls off here. This is awful. What is it? So just take all of those steps and rank them out 1 through 10. Anything else to add on that, Christy, before we move on?
Nope. Keep going.
Okay. So after you do that, you'll have all of these scores from all the different stuff, and you want to take the ones that are the bottom. Like what ranked the bottom? Like, oh my gosh, my day 1 is terrible. Or we really don't have any, systems to get them from that phone call to day 1. We're not following up. We're not texting. We don't have paperwork online, blah, blah, whatever it is. We don't, and nobody transitions to wellness. Everybody gets some of their care plan. Nobody's transitioning to wellness. So whatever it is you want to take and you want to find out what the bottom one is, or you might not actually identify 3 or 4 that are like, these are the bottom, for me, is these ones, but you have to take those and be like, which one are we going to tackle first? Because you can only tackle 1 at a time. So take all the rankings, find out your bottom 1 and your bottom 3 to 4, but just focus on 1 at a time.
And as you start figuring out what steps need to happen in order to reinvigorate that system and get a better results, I love to just start with my team and just like, why is this one a challenge, because sometimes it is as simple as just helping to remind your team of why that system, that piece of it is important, because you might, easily know that, this part of it is something that you rely on in order to help the patient through the journey. But sometimes your team forgets specifically why one piece is imperative. And oftentimes it could be as simple as just having that conversation again and helping them to own the why behind that part of it. And then all of a sudden, how you would rank that over the next few weeks just starts to creep up because they just needed a reminder of that why. So that's really the important place to start on the why. And if you can't come up with one, if you can't and your team can't, of just like, why do we do this? Then, one piece that Jake's going to walk you through is like, maybe that part of the puzzle just needs to be scrapped.
Yeah.
But there's lots of options when it comes to these lower ratings.
Yeah. So that's such a great lead in, Christy, is that really when you identify that piece, then it really becomes, do we need to tweak? Like Christy mentioned, maybe it's just a conversation or an awareness around something, and that takes that from a 5 to an 8 over the course of maybe a day, maybe a week, but it's just instantly going, because all it needed was a slight tweak in there. Maybe it's a rebuild. Maybe it's like, whew, this is bad. We need to really start over and rebuild this thing intentionally from the ground up, because a lot of times when you have a bad system, you didn't do it on purpose. It's just that not much thought went into it, so it just kind of became what it is. And don't beat yourself up. We've all had that. I literally just had some of that not long ago, right? So it just needs to be rebuilt. Okay, we're going to put some intentionality into this. We're going to rebuild this with purpose so it fits into our system better and actually accomplishes the desired result. And then the last thing Chris just mentioned is there may be things that get scrapped. Right. And we had this period of time. We had such amazing integrators on our team that I would just be like, hey, what are we doing? And again, it started with me. It's like, hey, we need this and we need that. And they would just take it and integrate. Right. And all of a sudden, like a year later, I'm looking at our systems, doing one of these audits, and I'm like, why is this so complicated? Like we literally are business with like 5 SKUs, like less, 3 SKUs. Why is there so much complication to that? Is because these systems got so complicated, so we kept adding stuff in that it didn't need a tweak or a rebuild in the sense. There's half of it that just need to be scrapped. Like we don't even need to do this anymore. So as you identify that, what needs to be tweaked, does need to be tweaked, rebuilt, or scrapped, make sure you go through that. And then after you've accomplished those things, move on to the next one, right? Find the next lowest thing you need to move on to the next one.
And as he said, just don't attach emotion to this process, because also the longer that you have been in practice, the more apparent it will be that certain pieces of your system and business structure are meant to be seasonal. Like they only have a finite timeline because the world changes and your philosophy changes, and your target market might even change a little bit. So there's going to be pieces that you were in love with that you implemented, maybe the last time you did this, that now you're like, we kind of tried that and it doesn't fit in. And so this is really one of the hallmark signs of a fantastic CEO, is just being willing to look at the data, look at the performance for what it is, make decisions, not be too attached to something if it's not giving you the results, and being willing to pivot and try something else, because there's a lot of ebb and flow that needs to happen in a really cohesive and strong business model.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pull Up a Chair Show.
Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the show on your favorite platform, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a colleague. We would be honored.
To connect with us, you can find us on IG at The Pursuit Kairos, or you can email us at connect@thepursuitkairos.com.
I love to just put a reminder in my calendar quarterly, and I do something like this, or there's other categories that I'll look at in my business just to make sure that I have that top of mind at certain times throughout the year to really just get to the nitty-gritty of what's going to help us move forward.
Yeah, and so great that you said that, because the also thing you have to realize too is there may be some parts of this that served you really well 5 years ago, right? And it's just not serving you anymore. Like Christy said, stuff changes. Like there's different technology that removed a step, or like your practice has changed, the model has changed, maybe what you're doing has changed a little bit. And something that served you really well in this system that was really great just may not fit in there anymore. And that's where the emotion has to be removed. But it's like, oh, but I loved this, but this worked so well in 2015. And that's okay. It should reserve a plaque on your wall and a warm memory in your heart, but it doesn't serve you any longer. So it needs to go. And I think sometimes those are the hardest band-aids to tear off. And but Christy said it so well again, as a good CEO, you need to remove the emotion and change and pivot as needed.
So our last little tidbit on this is really, if you get stuck on this, this is one of the many, many reasons we could list out why it's important for you to have great chiro friends, chiro accountability partners, because chatting through different pieces of this, you're always going to get good insight from someone that also is really passionate about leading a fantastic business while also being a great chiropractor. And so if you get stuck, just think about who you have in your life for that accountability piece. And we'll do another episode of just why that's so important. But it's not uncommon for you to identify that it's not the best, but not necessarily know how to rebuild it. Like maybe you're really, passionate about that piece of the puzzle, but you're not sure how to get to that new 2025 level strategy. And that's where sometimes you just need to be willing to talk to your friends, see what they've figured out, see what they've been exposed to in the industry when it comes to other tech and things that Jake mentioned, and be willing to try on new avenues of getting to that same end result.
Yeah, so great. This is something we're really passionate about, that we talk about a lot, these systems, what it takes to get through a successful practice and build an amazing family practice. So again, if you have further questions and stuff, don't hesitate to send us a DM, reach out, and we will be of any assistance that we possibly can. But thank you so much again for joining us today, and can't wait to see you on the next episode. See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pull Up a Chair Show.
Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the show on your favorite platform, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a colleague. We would be honored.
To connect with us, you can find us on IG at The Pursuit Chiros, or you can email us at connect@thepursuitkairos.com.